Lit doesn't have a CLI of its own, but there is a starter project to get us going. I'm using the TypeScript version here, but that part is optional. Inside the lit app TS file, you'll notice that it's calling window custom elements, which is part of the Web Components API in the browser. That's just a unique point that you won't see in other frameworks by default. Components themselves are defined as a class that extends lit element. Reactive data can be defined as properties on the class using the property decorator. Then methods can be defined on the class to update the state. Lifecycle hooks are based on the ones defined in the actual Web Components API, like connected callback. By implementing the connected callback method, we can run code when the component is first initialized. Now, one thing that's really interesting about lit is the way that it handles templates. It uses the existing template literals that we have in JavaScript, or in other words, a string that starts with backticks. This allows you to interpolate JavaScript into an HTML string using $ braces. The end result is something that feels kind of similar to JSX and React, but the HTML can also have directives like submit or .value to bind to the form submit event or the input value. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't support two-way data binding, so I had to set up an event listener here on the input change event to update the to-do text whenever that event fires. The bottom line with lit is that you get a much nicer way to build standard web components without having to be an expert on the underlying APIs. And that brings me to an alternative framework that is also focused on web components called Stencil. This one comes from the team behind the Ionic framework, which itself is actually a component library for mobile development that's built with Stencil. They use web components for the purpose of making Ionic compatible with React, Angular, and Vue out of the box.